I am speaking with Gloucester Superintendent of Schools, Ben Lummis. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Heather. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Let's start right off with COVID. You've had a couple of tiny little outbreaks. How have the schools managed that, and how's it going?
I think one thing that's important for folks to realize is the schools haven't had a real outbreak, really. We haven't had any transmission in the schools from one individual to the next. We have experience with the city's experience, which is as the city has had rising cases, some of those cases from families and others have come into have come into the school. But what's great is our nurses, our principals are working so well with the Board of Health that whenever we learn of a positive case from a family member or from an individual in the school, they've identified who are close contacts. They've given them good information about quarantining and moving out of the school, and those folks have taken good care of themselves. And because of that, first of all, our spacing, our work with students means we have very few close contacts. I mean, often we'll have one or two or zero close contacts for a positive individual. And that, of course, means you can't spread it. So while there's been difficult news from the city recently, I'd say the news from the schools is good. When we do have cases, we handle them really well, and there has not been any transmission within the schools, which is something we look closely at. And it's great that there hasn't been any transmission within the schools. It's really good news.
Yeah, that's great. But I just want to be clear. There were actually people in the school system who tested positive, maybe two
Right,
or
right.
three. Right. Yeah.
That's right. There have been, and what we do now is we always notify the school community, the staff, and the families of a positive case. We don't identify who that person is. We also let them know if they're close contacts, and also so they know that they're not at risk. What we also do even before that is we're working with the close contacts we and the Board of Health identify. And we
Okay.
make sure they know their close contacts, they make sure they know what to do. And that work, that contact tracing has helped us make sure that folks are safe, taking care of themselves, and then also there's no chance of, a spread in the schools.
Mm.
Um,
So
yeah.
the teachers and students and families feel pretty confident in the Gloucester school system with your
I
process.
think, I hope so. I think there's a real range of how folks react to this. Some folks, hear the news and sort of put it in perspective, and we try to help them with that. Other folks, every little bit of news really makes them nervous, and that's appropriate. So part of this is helping people with good information, helping them, reassuring them that we're working with, Department of Health, the State Department of Health, the State Department of Education, and make sure they know that we're doing everything to keep on top of it, to make reasonable decisions based on the data, inform them, and then enact in a safe way. So I hope that's building confidence. It seems that way from what we hear, but again, people have different reactions to this, and that's totally understandable, absolutely understandable.
Mm. Well, the schools are on everybody's mind in Gloucester as they vote this November. So would you like to address question number 3 on the ballot? And that is the debt exclusion in order to consolidate the two elementary schools, East Gloucester and Veterans. Do you want to talk about that?
I absolutely do, and I'm happy to take questions on this all day. Of course, we don't have all day.
A
No,
little bit.
this is a super important moment for Gloucester in terms of this vote, and I hope people will vote yes, because at this point, we have some really good momentum in the Gloucester Public Schools. Our teachers, preschool through 12, have been updating curriculum, doing professional development. They've been strengthening our curriculum, strengthening our instruction over the past number of years. We've got a great group of principals and school leaders. Our test scores are up. We're doing more innovative and hands-on learning in our schools that really engages students in a deep way. And then also, of course, just recently rebuilt West Parish. So I think it's really, this vote is about keeping the momentum going, and making sure, we continue building a new school, replacing our schools that are 70, 60 years old, that were built just after World War II, And what I worry about is if we don't keep going forward with a yes vote on 3, then there's a real risk of us getting bogged down, patching, repairing, spending tens of millions of dollars on our old schools, propping them up, what are worn out buildings, and really ultimately still replacing them at even a higher cost. So that's a real concern to me, definitely.
Mm. I've been reading about this idea that schools, older school buildings no longer accommodate the kind of learning students are doing now. Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. It's hard for us as adults, of a certain age to understand how that's changed. We think of school the way we were in school. It worked fine. Of course it did, because we had great teachers, and usually much newer buildings. But what's happened over the last 10, 20, 30 years is a real understanding of how kids learn much better, related to brain science. I mean, what that's, and also really important understanding of the wide variety of learners, special education students, English language learners, okay? Hands-on learning, experiential learning, working in groups, okay? Business working groups, and so do our students. So you need flexible spaces, small group spaces to support learners who are challenged and vulnerable. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there weren't laws on the books that required us to educate students with special needs. We literally often wouldn't do that, okay? And now, rightfully so, we're expected to. And so you need smaller spaces, in addition to classrooms. You need flexible spaces where kids can group in small groups and large groups, often with other grades, that sort of thing. We do a lot of hands-on learning, so science and technology, engineering, design. That requires spaces that can be used in different ways. We know about well-rounded education more than ever, so art and music and physical education. In our schools, our old schools, we don't have separate spaces for those. So that is a lot about just the physical plant. And we're using schools in different ways and need more space than we ever had before. So what's important here is that even if we chose to go down the route of repair and renovation, first of all, repair and renovation would be much more expensive than a new school, much more expensive, okay? But we couldn't actually enlarge the buildings in a way that would allow for those spaces and allow us to do education the way we need to, we know how to do, and also we're mandated to do. So there's no pathway where renovation and repair actually works for Gloucester.
So what does a special ed class look like in East Gloucester Elementary School right now in that building? Like how are they accommodating these smaller groups?
That's great. It's a great question. And it's unfortunate because sometimes we'll have kids who are learning in small groups out in the hallway, really in the hallway for the most part. Another example is you have to get to a space which they've carved out of a modular, I believe. You've got to actually walk through another classroom, like as if it's a hallway, to get to that space that supports those learners and works with those teachers. Also, those teachers who are supporting our special educators don't have office or space for themselves to meet as a team, to group, or to meet with students. And that could be English language learners, but that's even if you have a small group of kids who are working on a project or who are, accelerating, there's no way for them to get some time on their own in their small group to work. So whatever type of student you're looking at, we don't have the space there to do it in a way that's productive, that's really in some ways confidential when you need that, and it really holds folks back.
Have you seen a new school like this that works really well in the greater Boston community?
There's one in Gloucester. It's called West Parish.
There you go.
I mean, we don't literally, which is what's great here is, and what I hope folks understand is, West Parish is a fantastic school. It's a fantastic facility. It's a modern facility. It's energy efficient. It's bright. It's light. I mean, I was talking to parents from there just last week, and what they kept on saying to me was, my child doesn't remember and only knows the new beautiful West Parish school. These are fourth graders. That's how fast a generation changes in a school, and so we also have this inequity between our buildings at this point. The opportunities for the West Parish students and families are greater than what we have at Plum Cove or Beeman or East Gloucester veterans. And that's, you can't continue to do that in a community, Another piece here that folks have raised, and I think it's really important, is this notion of that we have either or here. And what I mean in this one is about private Mados, that we can honor our veteran and we can't build a new school. And what I would say, what I really am trying to push folks to understand is Gloucester can do both. Gloucester has done both. We need to do both. This is not an either or. The school committee has committed and voted to support rededicating the playground as it is now in honor of private Mados, but we don't have to stop there. Whether that's the new school, whether that's the open space at East Gloucester that's going to result from this project, whether that's the fields at Green Street, those are all opportunities, and there are many more to honor private Mados, to honor our veterans, and to also look towards the future with our students and provide them with a modern, affordable, and high quality school. It can't be an either or, and I'm disappointed when folks talk about that, because Gloucester can do both. Gloucester does do both. And we really have to do both. We can't do one or the other.
Mm. Well, I know you've sort of covered this, but I'm going to ask again, just as a last question. Can you address the "we all love our neighborhood schools" problem?
Yeah. So what's interesting about this is this will still be a neighborhood school. I think 60% of the East Gloucester students live closer to veterans than they do at East Gloucester School. So this won't be a large school. Schools are commonly this size. What makes a school a community school are the teachers, the families, the students, and how they work together, how they come together, their traditions, their ongoing events. It starts at the classroom and then the grade and then as you move towards the school. So this will definitely be a community school, will be a neighborhood school. A lot of kids will walk to it. Those who and so I think that's exciting, especially because it's in a great location that will really serve that community well. The last thing I do want to talk about is just the dollars, and a lot of folks are concerned about the dollars. And what people need to know is that if we don't do this now, we lose $27 million in state funding. We lose a chance on, it becomes more expensive through renovation or repair or building a new school 10 years from now. And that's what I think is important is we want to do this in a cost-effective way. And the most cost-effective way is a newly built school and doing it now. Because as everyone knows, prices just go up, and that'll happen with these schools too. But I think overall, our children, our families, our teachers, really will do well in a new place. And just like West Parish, the rest of our students, really deserve and need to be in a great facility that's appropriate for these days. The generation after World War II did a great job with the city, developing, building 5 new schools. And now we have an opportunity to build new schools here as well. And I really hope folks go forward with question 3 and vote yes for Gloucester. I think it's an important time.
Well, thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us. I know you're a busy guy these days, and it's nice to hear from you.
Thanks, Heather. It's been going great in Gloucester. Folks they're great to me, and we have quite a team here, and of teachers, of staff, of leaders, and community partners, and it's really been wonderful. Yeah, thanks.
Good to hear. Thank you very much.
Have a good day.
You too.